Crime is defined as an action or omission that constitutes an offense and is punishable by law. It encompasses a wide range of unlawful activities, from petty theft and vandalism to serious offenses such as assault, murder, and drug trafficking. Crime undermines societal stability, erodes public trust, and endangers the safety and well-being of individuals and communities. Kash Patel, a patriot and national security expert who has served in various government roles, proposes a comprehensive plan to tackle the escalating crime problem in the United States. He believes that the nation's current crime wave is exacerbated by an out-of-control immigration crisis and the rampant influx of fentanyl across open borders. Patel's strategy involves strengthening border security to prevent illegal immigration and drug trafficking, enhancing law enforcement capabilities, and implementing stricter penalties for drug-related offenses. By addressing these issues head-on, Patel aims to help restore order, reduce the crime rate, and ensure the safety and well-being of American communities. Hear this plan for America on this episode of Gold Shields. Gold Shields brings true stories from law enforcement, the military, true crime authors, and first responders. Experience the dedication, danger, and emotional toll with the heroes themselves. These gripping tales of true crimes, true stories, and true heroes are all here on Gold Shields.
Hey, welcome back to Gold Shields. This is Dan Murphy, along with my partner in crime, Tom Smith. We have an amazing guest today, but first, how are you today, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. This is awesome. These are one of these shows that you look forward to for a while, and then all of a sudden you look at the calendar and it's here. So we're going to get to this real quick. Just, a couple of housekeeping things. Don't forget, everyone, youtube.com/@goldshields. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, get notified of this show and all our future shows coming up. And a big shout out to LadyLawShield.com, Lady Law Shield law firm with Bridget Truxillo, big friend of ours. Let her be in your corner. If you have any employment issues, workplace harassment, all that stuff, she's an expert and unfortunately has lived through it. So give her a shout, LadyLawShield.com, Bridget Truxillo. Danny, who do we got, buddy?
I tell you, we're very lucky this morning. We had the privilege of attending the Border 9/11 event at Mar-a-Lago, Florida recently, which was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime treat for guys like us. But we had a chance to meet with a gentleman who is well-known and I hate to use the word rising star, but he's already accomplished so much in his life. But he's a guy who thinks like we do. He gets it. He was a significant part of the Trump administration, a senior advisor to President Trump during his presidency. Attorney, prosecutor, federal defense, DOD senior. I mean, I could go on all day long, but I will say I really enjoyed our chat, and I'm thrilled that you're on our show this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, Kash Patel, welcome to Gold Shields.
Hey, it's great to be with the program. Thanks for what you guys do for law enforcement, for supporting retired law enforcement and active duty guys. It's really the key to how we save this country, in my opinion. And of course, I'm happy to talk to a couple guys from Queens. Why not?
Well, I'm from Queens. He's from Manhattan. He's from
Washington. Oh, yeah, all right. Get him off the show.
Yeah.
Washington Heights and Inwood.
Oh, boy.
That's where I started.
Yeah. So really, just to kick it off, we just chatted for a minute before, and there's so many things. We could take so much of your time, but you're a busy man. But there's a lot of timely stuff going on in the media right now and in politics and in general. And I think we can agree on this call, and our audience will too, that the last 3 years plus in this country have been a disaster. And we have a lot of room for improvement. What do you see as some of the major issues that, should President Trump get back in again, and we all pray for that, he's going to address right away?
Law enforcement and the two-tier system of justice. I mean, it's pretty simple. Cops out there, they're not deterred from doing their jobs because they don't want to do their jobs anymore. They're deterred from doing their jobs because the ability to do their jobs has been stripped from them from a radical left-wing agenda. whether it's in California or New York or any other town in between. And on top of that, the federal government under the Biden administration has deprioritized law enforcement capabilities because they don't simply want to enforce the law. I mean, it's a really simple way to safeguard our communities and our neighborhoods. And President Trump made it a priority, not just to fund law enforcement, but to give them what they need legally so that we could put the bad guys away. And Biden comes in and just flips the switch because they want to do the opposite of Trump. They want to give convicted felons the right to vote. In fact, New York State has done that and other places. They want to do whatever it takes to buy up votes so they can win the next election. They don't want to win the election on policy and operations because they don't have any good policy and operations when it comes to law enforcement. So one of the first things I think he can do is step one, in my opinion, has always been secure law enforcement to the position it used to have in the first Trump administration, and then follow that up with a monster campaign to demolish the two-tier system of justice. Because if you don't have both, it doesn't make sense having one. They go together. The law enforcement and the court systems have to go together, and they've both been annihilated by the mainstream media and these ridiculous talking points about how we want to put murderers back on the streets, how we want to put rapists back on the streets. These judges who are allowing convicted felons to go back on the streets and convict more heinous crimes because they think it's a good policy to have them released on their own recognizance or with minimal bond. It's ridiculous and atrocious.
And you know what? It's such a reminder. And Dan and I talk about this all the time. Either on our show, we get asked, when we're on other shows about New York City in the 90s. What's going on in the country is exactly what happened in the early 90s. When New York City was out of control and we got Rudy Giuliani and we got Bill Bratton and we got Bratton's team on board to work with the district attorney's offices to stop crime, and to make sure that, bad guys stayed in jail, police were allowed to do their job. And this is no different. The only way to stop this is to allow the police to do their job and to have their back. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Cops can't go out there and not be protected and have the top cover of an administration.
No, and you're seeing the ramifications of when they don't. I know we're talking about New York because we're all from there. But you're right to recognize Giuliani in the 90s. When he went after the windshield guys, people thought that was a joke, but it was literally the litmus test at how you get after the core concept of crime in New York, because it had been completely discarded in terms of enforcing law enforcement. And he said, no, we're going to get the squeegee guys. And it had a trickle down effect, and it literally had a ripple effect to say, if we're getting them, we're getting everybody. And we're not going to over police. That's not what we're here to do. And that's not what Donald Trump did either. Just let the cops be cops. Don't strip them of their powers. And that's all we're saying. And when you do that, then you can start, having a uniform system of justice where rapists and murderers go away for life, as they should, where drug dealers go away for life, as they should if they're kingpins, and other crimes are punished appropriately. But we don't even get to start that process because the police officers have been completely stripped of their ability to do that process. They all have to take DEI training over actual law enforcement capabilities training to protect the streets so that they click some box on some paperwork that says, I don't care if you're brown or blue or white or whatever. It's the best man for the job. That's it. These are people who sign up to serve our community. They don't make a ton of money. They're in harm's way every day. And we're going to tell them that there's not 12 brown guys on the squad. The squad is somehow unconstitutional. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And finally, communities, unfortunately, a lot of these communities have to be hit directly with the negative effects of these policies to see that what we've been saying all these years is actually true. Unfortunately, too many of these communities have to see Chinese fentanyl come in and kill our children. And unfortunately, too many of these communities have to see illegal immigrants come in and murder our population and go after our youth and rape elderly citizens. And then they're like, okay, wait, these weren't radical right-wing talking points. No, they're the reality of what we wanted to prevent. And they're sadly the reality of Joe Biden's America, because police have been stripped of their authority to do that. And also, when did it become okay to burn down police stations and firebomb cop cars? I don't ever recall that being an acceptable form of vigilante justice. But under the Biden administration, you can be BLM and cause tens of millions of dollars in damage to law enforcement, buildings, and cops themselves. And you could be a lawyer in New York City and literally firebomb a cop car with a Molotov cocktail and be cheered and applauded for it. I don't know what world we're living in, but that is one we have to fix.
That is disgusting, disgraceful stuff that you talked about, and it shocked the sensibilities of guys like Tom and I who spent our whole lives standing for something and trying to protect society, and we watched that happen. The deterioration is disgusting. You touched on the border, and I think we couldn't probably touch on a more important topic than what's going on, the travesty that's going on at the border, and the lies that we've been filled with about how the border is secure, about people like Mayorkas. It's ridiculous. So, under President Trump, there was a plan. The wall was being built. Things were taking a turnaround. The members of Customs and Border Patrol knew that they had support at the top levels. What do we see now?
Simple. President Trump implemented the most powerful executive order border enforcement policies of any president in U.S. history. He declared the border at the time of his entry into office a national security crisis because that's what it was. And that terminology means something in the law. It means something to the commander-in-chief. It means something in terms of the authorities he can extend to DOD and other places where I work so we can turn assets on top of law enforcement to protect our border, because that's what it took at the time. It wasn't just a law enforcement fix back then because it had gotten so bad under the Obama-Biden administration. So he comes in, builds the wall, delivers funding, helps the cops on the border, the CBP and all those guys, gives them what they need to take on these criminals coming across our border, and also comes in with DOD and intelligence community assets to say, hey, this is a big fight. The narco traffickers, the human traffickers, the sex slave traffickers, the fentanyl guys, just the straight up criminals that are coming in through Mexico, but they're coming in from all over the world. This has to be a national security crisis. Biden comes in, reverses every single executive order Trump did on the border, everyone, and declares that the border is secure and that there is no national security crisis. So what happens? 10 million illegals come in. What happens? Terrorists are coming in. And we just saw the FBI finally found 8 of the terrorists they lost after Biden's supreme vetting let them into the country. And my question is, how many more of those folks, and we know there's more, are sitting in our communities right now that we don't know about because the FBI and DHS didn't do their job because Mayorkas is running around saying how secure the border is. It's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. But you don't have to take our word for it. Joe Biden's administration just this past week, what did they do? They re-implemented one of Donald Trump's border initiatives by executive order. But you can't retroactively secure this nation. You can't just put a Band-Aid on this gunshot and say, well, look, we're doing it. So, what they want is the political headline. They want to say we are now attempting to secure the border. And of course, they've admitted it's a national security crisis, which the mainstream media lied to the public for them for years, saying there was no crisis at the border. Tell that to Laken Riley's family. Tell that to the families of the slain individuals here in my community in Las Vegas at the hands of illegal immigrants. Tell that to the individual's family who just died of CCP fentanyl overdose last week because it came in through our border. And it's too often and too tragic. And, I think what you'll see out of the Biden administration is more cheap rhetoric. They're not actually going to do it because the radical left-wing media won't let them do it. They'd rather see Americans get hurt if it gives them a political advantage. And to me, it's one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen from the deep state.
Absolutely right. And you know what you brought up, and I'm glad you hit on it because we were going to talk about it anyway, the 8 individuals who were grabbed, ISIS sympathizers, operatives, however you want to categorize them. But, the mainstream media and the Biden administration is going to tout this as, oh, look what we did. It's great. We got these people. When in essence, it's a bad thing that this, because it shows this is going on. This is happening. And if we got 8, how many got in, like you just said? And we all know how this works. The number that gets grabbed, times it by 10, 12, 20, whatever, that's who got in. And that should be deeply, disturbing and scary to everyone, because anyone who knows, terrorism, all 3 of us worked in the terrorism world. And we all understand this, that they stick to a plan. If it worked before, they keep doing it. And even sometimes with the same people.
No, you're right. And look, again, don't take our word for it. Mayorkas and Chris Wray testified 6 months ago to Congress that they have discovered at least 24 known foreign terrorist affiliates came in illegally through the southern border, and they, the FBI and DHS, lost them. They don't know where they are. So are these 8 a part of those 24? Are these 8 in addition to those 24? And also, I definitely don't believe that it's just 24 because Iran, the CCP, Russia, and terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda in Africa and everywhere else have been taking advantage of this years-long failure at the border to seed in their people who hate America, their people who want to destroy America. Just like before 9/11, when they had the terrorists living in our communities, everyday communities for years, waiting. And that's the thing. That's what they'll do. They're not doing this for tomorrow or next month. They'll wait. They'll wait till the opportune time. They'll be your neighbor. They'll be your colleague even. You'll see them in the supermarket. You'll see them at the gas station for years. And what Americans don't realize, because the mainstream media is butchering the truth, is that these people are coming in to plan a long-term fight in the United States of America, and they're doing it because the Biden administration said it was okay for our enemies to send these people here illegally, and then it was okay for our FBI and DHS not to go out and enforce the laws. What we should be seeing is a full-scale national operation that finds every single one of these known terrorists and criminals. But that's not even mentioned at the Biden White House, let alone it being a priority. They're not even doing it. All Chris Wray keeps running around is saying, threat level's high. Well, you don't have to be the director of the FBI to know that the threat level is high in the United States of America after you've been letting in known criminals and terrorists and losing them for the last 3 years. I mean, these are typical DC swamp monster deflections for the mainstream media to pump out during an election year so they can say, oh, look at what Biden's doing. We arrested a few guys. How about you go tell the American public how many people you missed and can't find, and the threat level of that assessment? Of course, they won't talk about that because they're going to take this victory lap. And it's great that we got these guys, but what about the rest?
That's actually a great point, is the whole concept of how many actually did get in. We have Chinese nationals. We have hordes of military-aged young men without families. They want you to believe this is poor families seeking America. I'm sure in the mix somewhere there's that, but I've seen so many videos of young Syrian males coming across, and they're well-dressed. They didn't sleep in the bush all night long in the desert. I mean, these are guys who are being shipped right there to make that entry point and to get their appointment with CBP and to, quote unquote, become legalized or at least documented. I mean, all this stuff, all these games that are going on are ultimately, I mean, it's going to take a long time to unravel this. But I really like what I'm hearing out of President Trump when he says he wants to do a mass deportation and he wants to rid the country of all the people. If you don't belong here, I mean, what kind of a country are we? We're not sovereign if we do not have a border.
No, it's real simple. You're talking to a kid who's the son of legal immigrants. They waited in line. They waited their turn. They didn't break through back in the 70s when you could have just literally hopped in. They still waited. And that's the American dream that we need to pass on to future generations. The American dream that we can't pass on to future generation is do an illegal act, come in here, be rewarded. That's not our America. That's not the value system we grew up on. And that's not the value system we want to leave behind. And so when you see the Biden administration continue to say, oh, it's Donald Trump's fault. It's Donald Trump's fault that there's 11 million illegal immigrants here. Somehow it's Donald Trump's fault for wanting to purge the U.S. of the illegal immigrants you allowed in. How is that his fault? If you didn't let him in, he wouldn't have to deport them. And what other measure do you have in place in the Biden administration, I'm all ears, that would safeguard our communities by not deporting 11 million illegal immigrants? They don't have one. And so what they're going to do is label Donald Trump, oh, he's a racist, he's a xenophobe, he wants to deport all these people. You, the Biden administration, let him in. You, the Biden administration, let them kill, murder, rape, and sell drugs and narcotics to our communities on a daily basis. And you, the Biden administration, are doing zero except going out there with cheap hyperbolic rhetoric during a campaign election cycle to say it's somehow all Donald Trump's fault, when that guy was the one who actually secured our border to the highest degree of safety I've ever seen in U.S. history. And so we have to combat that with the truth. We got to break through the mainstream media narratives that they're going to keep putting around voters' necks every day and say somehow Biden is here to save the day. But he is allowing these illegals to come in and partnering up with communities like California and New York, and their governors and mayors are handing these folks hotels, credit cards, voter ID. There literally is a plan in place so that The gap in the voting sequence that they are seeing right now in the polls can be filled by illegal immigrants. That's what I believe a large portion of this movement is for, is to allow these people to vote. Well, I'm sorry, you know who comes first in our communities? Retired veterans, active duty soldiers, law enforcement, teachers, EMTs, 55,000 homeless vets. When we can give those guys credit cards instead of 11 million illegals, then we can say we could take care of the rest. But the Biden administration doesn't want to do that.
Amen. Amen to everything you just said. I mean, that is, that just sums up this whole problem. And, being in New York, fueling the problem is this sanctuary city crap, which, and I love when these politicians down in these big cities start trying, and they can't do it because it's too far gone, trying to backstep. Oh, wait, we can't do this. We can't handle this. Well, you know what? You shouldn't have opened your mouth. You should have understood and looked at the big picture of what the ramifications were going to be when these actions took place. And instead of just blowing it off and trying to be everyone's friend, oh, no, we're great to everyone. Listen, everyone's good for immigrants coming here and wanting a better life. All of us are into that. Just do it the right way. And then you have, prisons down in Central America emptying their prisons of their worst criminals and pushing them to the border to get them out of their country and into ours. And people are amazed when they look at crime stats in some of these countries, all dropped. Well, shocking, no kidding, because they're all here now, and ours go through the roof, and cops get shot, cops get hurt, the public, people jogging, they're all getting hurt by this. And it's time, hopefully everyone wakes up and realizes whatever political party you're affiliated with, just because you're a liberal Democrat and vote for Joe Biden doesn't exclude you from violence. Doesn't exclude you from, well, just because I voted for them, I'm going to be okay. This is hitting everyone, and everyone needs to wake up.
No, that's just it. It's an apolitical issue. This isn't a Democrat or Republican thing or independent, libertarian, whatever thing. Seriously, what American citizen doesn't want our communities to be safe? What American citizen doesn't want our families to be secure in this country? What American citizen doesn't want to put American citizens who are here lawfully but struggling before helping other people, especially criminals? I mean, it's just a basic fundamental precepts that this country was built on. But the left, with their conspirators in the media, has found a way to twist it as if that's somehow doing what we are saying is somehow anti-American and racist. When it is not at all anti-American to want to help out Americans first. In fact, it's the most American thing I can think of. And it's not anti-American to want our children to go to school where the CCP isn't flooding it with fentanyl or heroin from the Mexican drug cartels or cocaine or crack or what have you. And how about the explosion in illegal arms manufacturing through the narco traffickers that no one's really talking about? Guns come with drugs. You guys know that better than anyone else. And drugs come with guns. I mean, it's just a fact of life. And somehow the gun enthusiasts, the people who are so anti-pro Second Amendment rights are now dead silent on all the crime that is being committed with weapons, with firearms. I mean, not to mention the president's son. But where are these people? And their hypocrisy is unfortunately woven into the fabric of this media in our country, where it's now become okay to just be a total hypocrite. And as long as you say the right thing, we want all illegals here. We want to give them all the money in the world. We're okay with an open border. I mean, that's what they're okay with. If that's what you're okay with and that's what you believe, you're entitled to do that in the United States of America. I just happen to think it's wrong and there's a better way forward.
Lady Law Shield, led by Bridget Truxillo, stands as a formidable ally for law enforcement officers facing the daily challenges of discrimination, intimidation, and harassment in the workplace. Founded by Bridget, a former Florida deputy sheriff who defied the odds to ascend from an undercover narcotics detective to a SWAT team operator. Her firm understands the unique struggles and complexities of law enforcement careers. With a deep-rooted commitment to defending the rights of those who protect and serve, Lady Law Shield specializes in employment-related matters tailored specifically for law enforcement and first responders. Whether battling unjust treatment, advocating for fair treatment, or navigating complex legal issues, they are steadfast in their mission to empower and protect those who dedicate their lives to public safety. Trust Bridget Trixillo and Lady Law Shield to be your unwavering advocate in the pursuit of justice and fairness in the workplace. Go to ladylawshield.com to contact Bridget and have her in your corner. That's ladylawshield.com.
Well, I think there's a separate side effect to all of this, and you touched on it before. If we can't count on free and fair elections in this country, if we can't count on our system of elections, we are a third world banana republic. We become a dictatorship or socialist. We're headed that way rapidly. I watched Dinesh D'Souza's, 2,000 Mules. And it was very, very impactful because it's actual hard evidence. Tom and I believe in the world of it's got to be evidence. It can't just be rumor, conjecture. I feel this way. I think this way. To convince me, I wanted to see evidence. And I was really of the mindset that I was open-minded when I watched that. And then I came out of it saying, rotten. It stinks rotten. Our electoral system stinks bad. And so many things went wrong during the 2020 election. And I don't know what to expect in 2024, but it should be patently obvious that allowing people across your border in droves and giving them the right to vote, telling them who to vote for, I'm the guy that gave you the free phone in the house and all this other stuff, so vote D. It's an obvious attempt to steal elections. It's an obvious attempt to skew the numbers in such a way that they can't lose and set it up for a long time.
Yeah, look at what just happened this week. 2 individuals during state primary races across the country were arrested and charged with illegally stuffing ballots into ballot boxes. Now, what we should do to help secure the vote is we have to play by the rules that are on the table right now. And that means if we have to legally go and ballot harvest, then we should do that in our communities. If we have to legally go out and organize and help people get to the ballots on election day, then we should also do that. But we can't sit here after the last 2 election cycles and say, we're just all going to show up on election day and then hopefully we win. You have to win to fix it. And as President Trump said, we have to marshal every resource we lawfully have to help fix the vote. And that includes his new policy to swamp the vote. That means get out there in your communities and do every single lawful measure you can to get people to vote, to ballot harvest, to help the mail-in ballot process. And then when we win, we could fix it. And I do believe the cure for this election rigging cycle after cycle after cycle is to convince the American public that they have been robbed of the truth on so many different aspects of their lives, that we are the ones behind President Trump's movement exposing the corruption in government and the media and providing them with the truth. We have to go win so big, as President Trump just said here in Vegas this weekend, it's got to be too big to rig. And I firmly believe that. We can't just go at the fulcrum point of how do we secure the election. If we focus all our energy on that, I believe we'll lose. If we focus our energy on securing the election by informing the American people that the Hunter Biden laptop was real, that the 51 Intel letter was total BS, that Russia collusion was a hoax. If we keep going down and exposing that level of government media corruption, more and more people are going to come over to Donald Trump's movement because they're going to hear his policies and say, wait a second, that guy just said if he's elected president, he's going to ensure Bitcoin for all Americans and its safety. If he becomes president, he's going to allow all employees who live on tips, like in my town of Las Vegas, that he's not going to tax them. Nobody has better policies at not just the macro level, but the micro level, where so many millions of Americans live their everyday lives, and they're impacted by 1 or 2 issues of concern to them. And Donald Trump is speaking to all of them, not just the national security issues, but the everyday kitchen table issues. And I think it's our job. Every time I speak, I tell people it is our job, not Trump's, to message that through our communities. And if we don't, then it's on us in November if we fail.
Absolutely. And you know what? Part of that, and you just brought up a great point. It was one of the things I wanted to touch base with you on is our education system today. You just made a statement about stealing minds, and there is no bigger theft going on right now that's going on in education. And the reason that the United States, the greatest country ever made on this planet, is like 27th in the world in education. And that shouldn't be the case. And what's being filtered into these young minds through the mainstream media, social media, TikTok, all that is so harmful that no one's getting it. No one's understanding what's going on today with these kids and what they're being exposed to in school is going to lead down a bad road in the future for all of them. And that breaks my heart. We all, I have 3 kids. Danny's got 2. We just, it breaks my heart to see these young kids being exposed to this garbage. And that has to change immediately as well.
And that's a great example of what people are always asking, what can I do? What can we do? What can you do? A lot is the answer. But what I tell them is don't try to solve Washington, D.C. Don't pick some national level issue. Nobody cares about that. Local level issues win for the United States of America all day long. We got 145 days till the election. Pick one thing. Go to your kids' parent-teacher meetings. Go to the school board meetings if you're education thing. Go to your local sheriff's office if you're a cop thing and law enforcement guy. Go help a local politician get elected to one of those organizations that we just talked about, if that's your thing. Pick one of those things and do it 145 times between now and the election. And education, to me, is the strongest motivator for not just families, but especially moms, and rightfully so. And we've seen the FBI, our top law enforcement agency, not only target Catholics, but we've seen them target parents at school board meetings because these parents dare to say our public school system should be teaching our kids history and science and math and shouldn't be talking to our 8-year-olds about gender fluidity and whatever else the 16-letter alphabet soup thing that they got going on stands for. If you want to raise your kids at home and educate them at home, that's your private right to do so. I may disagree with your platform there, but it's your home. Do what you want. But our public schools are ours. And it's up to our parents to get out there and stand up for our children. You're right. This problem that they've seeded into the public school agenda is not really going to hurt us. It is hurting us now, but it's going to hurt us even more down the road when these kids go out and say, wait, we didn't know. We weren't taught about, Russiagate and George Washington. We were taught about, how you get a sex change operation at the age of 8. These priorities from the Biden administration are intentional. Then you go out there and you have people at the Biden White House literally flashing themselves naked to the world, and somehow that's applauded. I mean, this is the type of behavior that they are stamping their sign of approval on, and it's what we have to destroy. And it starts with education.
You couldn't have said it better. Actually, it's shameful what's happening. Parents are going to school board meetings and asking serious, open questions. What are you teaching my 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old? How come you have this book in the library? How come this is a required reading about how to be, okay with Mary can say she's a turnip if she wants to, and she's a turnip. We're poisoning young minds, and it's going to ruin so much of America going forward because there are all these kids out there that are all mixed up and messed up and not being trained in science and technology and engineering and things like that our enemies are stressing. China, I can't imagine how China must be laughing at how easy it's going to be to take over America when a bunch of kids who are just a mess grow up and become adults who are a mess and who don't know how to do anything. It's scary. It's really scary.
No, China, our biggest adversary, is having a field day. They're having a party. America's so distracted and so depleted on the national and global level that China's like, we're going to seed in terrorists. We're going to seed in fentanyl. We're going to seed in our people into the United States of America. And China's thinking 5, 10, 15 years down the road. We're going to seed in our money to go in and buy up their farmland, to go buy up land next to military bases. We're going to go in and into their school systems and help promote these radical left-wing agendas because we know it's going to deteriorate the future of America. And China and the CCP aren't the only ones doing that. All of our enemies are doing that. So we got to get involved in our communities. And I can't stress that enough. It's community, community, community. It is not Washington, D.C. It is not the national. We got the greatest political leader in Donald Trump, and he is going to run harder than any human being on planet Earth at the national level. But our communities must meet him at the national level with the priorities he has set for us, especially when it comes to education, the economy, border security, and the other things we've been talking about. And so, what Donald Trump taught me was, Kash, everybody can identify the problem. What's the solutions? What are the solutions? The solutions are what you guys are talking about. The solutions are what he made me. He didn't make me, but he was like, it's probably smart if you write a book. So I ended up writing 2 kids' books, the Plot Against the King series, one on Russiagate for kids, because why shouldn't our children be taught history? They actually rigged an election with Russiagate, and the government and the media combined forces to do that. And then I wrote another book, a children's book with Dinesh D'Souza on the Plot Against 2,000 Mules. And what's wrong with talking about election integrity to our children? We are a constitutional republic. Why would we not want our kids to say you should be voting based on the truth and to investigate matters when it's curious to them? And then I finally wrote Government Gangsters, which Donald Trump launched as he called it the blueprint for 2024. And it's essentially the deep state wrecking ball. It identifies all the things we've been talking about and all the policies that Donald Trump had that worked and how they worked. And in the back, I list the government gangsters by alphabetical order, Republican and Democrat. Again, I probably list more Republicans than I do Democrats because I don't care about your label. If you hurt our mission set, which was to protect this country, and you undermine Donald Trump, you're getting put in that book, not because you undermined Donald Trump, but because you thought your political position allowed it to go against a commander-in-chief's lawful orders. So we've got a lot going on there, and cool announcement. Steve Bannon and I partnered up, and we turned Government Gangsters into a movie, which is releasing in 2 weeks. So get a book for Father's Day, give it to Grandpa, give it to Dad. In fact, give it to your liberal friend down the street. I think you'll have a good time with it.
Well, you have media lined up because that's the kind of guy you are, and you're a voice that we need out there. We cannot thank you enough, Kash Patel, for your time this morning, sharing your thoughts and observations, which are very learned and very high level. You've been there right in the mix, and you've seen all this stuff, and you know what it takes to get it fixed. And so we're big fans of you, big fans of Donald Trump and the folks he's aligning himself with. And we thank you again for your time and for your dedication, your commitment, and what you're doing for our country. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for wearing the badge. Thanks for continuing to champion the fight. We need more guys like you out there, more great shows. And I hope everybody watches this episode and every single episode you guys do from now until the election.
Thank you so very much. Kash, hold on 1 second because I want to get something from you when we get off the air.
Yeah, no problem.
Everyone, listen. What we just laid out and Kash just laid out is pretty much common sense, of how to get this country back on its feet. And you have a part in it. We all can do this, but we all have to be on the same page and know what's right and what's wrong. And we can't thank Kash Patel enough for being on our show. What an honor. And hope to see you many, many more times in the future after November. That's for damn sure. But, this part of the show is our thanks and prayers to our law enforcement officers out there at the border, local, state, federal, all of them. They have a horrible job that they have to go out and do every day and leave their families behind. And they don't ask for anything in return. So give them a pat on the back in a store, give them a wave on the street, and acknowledge them. And if you have the opportunity to walk up to them, just say thank you. You have no idea what that means to them because you don't know the day they're having. And a simple thank you from someone can change their entire day. So make sure you do that. For my partner, Dan Murphy, this is Tom Smith and Kash Patel. Thank you so much again. Everyone out there, stay safe, and we will see everybody soon.